President Trump says his administration is rooted in restoring law and order when it comes to illegal immigration. So, why is he warning of a dangerous outcome if the courts block his efforts? I'm Veronica Dudo. Let's find out.
This is In America Today from the Ticker News Studios in New York City.
President Donald Trump is doubling down on his immigration agenda, saying it's impossible to give every undocumented migrant a trial and vows to continue mass deportations. After taking office, President Trump designated Tren de Aragua and several other migrant gangs present throughout the U.S. as foreign terrorist organizations. President Trump says he is seeking cooperation from the judiciary to expedite removals, especially amid growing concerns about gang violence.
All over the world, not just South America. They were emptying their prisons into the United States. Venezuela emptied its prisons out, but many countries emptied their prisons into the Congo. As an example, in Africa, emptied their prisons into the United States, and we're getting them out. And I hope we get cooperation from the courts because, we have thousands of people that are ready to go out, and you can't have a trial for all of these people. It wasn't meant, the system wasn't meant, and we don't think there's anything that says that, look, we are getting some very bad people, killers, murderers, drug dealers, really bad people, the mentally ill, the mentally insane. They emptied out insane asylums into our country. We're getting them out, and a judge can't say, no, you have to have a trial. The trial's going to take 2 years. And
for more, I'm joined by Tony Delgado, the CEO of Latino Wall Street. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So first, let's begin with how necessary do you think the immigration efforts the Trump administration is taking for their impact on the economy and also safety reasons?
Yeah, so let's be clear. This is a humanitarian crisis. What happened under President Joe Biden over the last 4 years, to President Trump's point, is foreign nations emptied their prisons, they emptied insane asylums, and it was basically a free-for-all across the border. And, a lot of it is due to messaging, right? The previous administration and the Democrats in these quote unquote sanctuary cities across the nation were sending a clear message that illegal immigration was going to be accepted, that these people were going to be given housing, that they were going to be giving food stamps, and that it was basically a free-for-all. So that clear message has led to millions of people coming across the border illegally. The analogy that I always like to give is if you had a nightclub in a major city and there were no metal detectors, there was no security guards, you didn't check ID, what would you have? You would have underage drinking, you would have drugs, you would have weapons, right? Normal Americans can't even get on a plane without showing ID and going through a metal detector. So the fact that we think it's okay for millions of people to cross the border without so much as a ID check, I think is ridiculous.
Now, of course, you did mention all of the different types of security that's involved for citizens in the United States and also sanctuary cities. You're a successful Puerto Rican American entrepreneur. Why do so many Latino Americans strongly support President Trump's efforts to deport dangerous and illegal gang members from the U.S.?
Well, listen, we have over 50 million Hispanic American legal citizens here in the United States who either immigrated here legally the right way, paid all the legal paperwork, and waited on a waiting list sometimes for years to come to this country the right way. And they came here for the American dream, not the San Francisco nightmare. They've seen what communism and socialism has done to a lot of countries in Latin America, and they know that these cartels are dangerous, right? You can gaslight normal Americans, you can gaslight white people and African Americans and Asians and people from other races here in the United States, and we can pretend like these cartels don't exist. But real Latinos know that these cartels are very real. If you ask any Mexican, I have a very good friend of mine, he's a wealthy Mexican entrepreneur, and he doesn't like going to Mexico because he knows the cartels are real. He knows that these places are not safe. and that there is no law and order. And, instead of worrying about keeping law and order in foreign countries all across the world and other continents, I think we should focus on keeping law and order at our southern border, at Mexico. And that's what President Trump is doing. And I really, really loved when in his first week in office, he classified these cartels as terrorist organizations. They've been terrorizing our communities for years, and it is time to put a stop to it.
Now, of course, he is approaching his 100 days in office. How do you think voters, also business people, are responding to his hardline immigration stance as he is rounding out those 100 days?
Well, listen, the Trump campaign has to be very careful about optics because any wrong step that they take is going to be completely twisted by the media. We already know that the mainstream media machine and the liberal media is positioned against Trump. And basically, even if he walks out of bed in the morning and makes himself a coffee, they will say that his coffee was racist because he likes to drink his coffee light and sweet instead of drinking it black. But in all actuality, the administration does need to be careful with the messaging, but I think they've done a great job. I think the new press secretary is a breath of fresh air. And I had a private meeting with Tom Homan, and he made it clear to me and all the other people in the room that their focus is on removing illegal criminals. They are focusing first on cartel members, on gang members, on people who have come to this country illegally. That's strike number one. And then they've violated the law in some sort of way and caught additional charges here while they were in the United States. And that used to be an automatic deportation. That used to be one strike and you were out. Under the previous administrations, there's been a lot of chaos that was allowed to go on. So I think it's definitely a good thing that they're cleaning up the streets, and they just need to really be focused on that messaging and making sure that they don't get taken out of context.
Now, there has certainly been a shift going on when it comes to the mainstream media landscape, with a lot of Americans getting their news and, of course, views from podcasting and other sources of news sites. How do you think all of that factors into, how people think about the president, his administration, and also his policies?
Yeah, I mean, this was really the podcast election. We were invited to a private event with Spotify during the inauguration, and they showed the numbers and the statistics. I mean, Kamala Harris failing to appear on Joe Rogan and other alternative media podcasts really could have cost her the election. And, unfortunately for the mainstream media, they are not the only voice of reason or the way of communication with the American public anymore. President Donald Trump has the ability to communicate directly with the American people. He does so with his Truth Social platform. He does so with other various forms of social media. And he really has survived extreme attempts at censorship, extreme attempts at media manipulation. And he has proven through this last election, winning the popular vote, that those tactics of censorship really do not work in this new digital economy, because people are consuming media on their own terms. They're making their own decisions. And this narrative and this spin that's happening just isn't working. Again, I do think that the administration needs to continue to do what it is doing with messaging, inviting alternative media and new media and podcasters and influencers into the White House to work with the press secretary. I think is extremely crucial. And it is really just a sign that new media is here to stay.
Tony Delgado, the CEO of Latino Wall Street, thank you so much for coming on In America Today.
Thank you for having me on.
This is Ticker. We'll be right back.